What's up, guys? Welcome back to Spank Ranch Garage. Tonight I need to add a secondary tachometer input to my dyno. I know I haven't talked a lot about my homemade dyno on the channel. I'll do a video about it later. But anyway, typically I use the roller speed and I sync that to the RPM of the car. That's how I do my data. There's certain cases I'm getting into where the car may be carbureted, it may not even be a car, or it may be like a Commonrail Diesel where I don't have an easy way to pick up a tach signal. So I bought this MSD tach signal pickup. It's for like adding a tachometer to like your old school, piece of crap, small block, whatever you guys do. As far as I understand, you can clip this onto the coil wire and this will generate a 0 to 12 volt square wave, which then I can use to step down to a 0 to 5 volt square wave and put it into my data acquisition on the dyno. That way I can measure roller RPM, but I can also measure engine RPM, which will be important for determining slip, clutch slip, tire slip. It's important for say this buggy, for instance, it doesn't have a tachometer. I can, determine engine RPM with that and make my plots proper. Or also, like I said, like a Commonrail Diesel, I can clip this onto an injector wire and hopefully monitor engine RPM that way. So I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to try it. That's the part number, 8918. Let's open this bad girl up. So I think it's just a little inductive pickup sensor that you loosen this screw and you can clamp it around a wire. Actually says right here, primary coil wire or diesel injector 12 volt wire. We're gonna test both of those. All right, let me figure this out. Now I mentioned that we're gonna get a 0 to 12 volt signal out of the MSD box. I did purchase this little opto-isolator breakout board from SparkFun. It's like $5, you can't beat it. So essentially this is going to isolate whatever's going on with the sensor and my actual data acquisition box just from a safety perspective. So no matter what happens, I close the hood on the sensor, it gets sucked into a serpentine belt, whatever happens, we're not going to send any harmful signals to the actual dyno computer. First thing I did was add 15 feet of cable, so I got about 20 feet now. You never know if you got a front wheel drive car, a super long pickup truck, whatever. It's nice to have enough cable to reach. This looks like a little bit of a mess, but we got the opto-isolator wired up. I got a plug on this end that's going to go into my dyno acquisition card. I'm not putting in the signal wire yet. I'm going to actually put an oscilloscope on this, watch the signal, make sure it's safe before I do it, along with this signal too. I'm going to scope the whole thing and make sure it's working before we actually plug it in, because I cannot afford to let the smoke out. My mess of wires here, I do already have a 12 volt transformer to power the wideband, so I'm going to piggyback off of that for this RPM pickup as well. Up here, this bottom channel is supposed to be our 12 volt signal, and this should be our 5 volt signal. I got it roughly wired up to the data acquisition. Let's try to configure it now. Hub roller RPM 2. Can try that. Let's fire it up and see if it does anything. All right, she's reading perfect. On the 4-cylinder with a distributor, she's gonna spark twice per rev. On a V8 diesel, she's gonna spark once per every 2 revs. So we gotta go to 0.5 on this, get the proper RPMs. 680, that's where I got the RPM set at. All right, so this is working fantastic on the old Isuzu Commonrail here. Interesting thing is, it's not picking up the pilot injection. So I thought I'd actually have to divide this by 2, but apparently the pilot injection pulse is so small that it's not picking it up. And if you don't know what that is, I can explain that in a different video. All right, this is a carbureted Chevy 305, 1986 HEI ignition. She's reading on the GM HEI as well. There is a negative side coil wire that comes off the distributor. It's the terminal closest to the front of the truck. Now, this actually needs to be set to 4. So I think you're gonna have 4 firing cycles per revolution. Cam turns at half the engine speed. So idling at 650. Let's rev her up, see how it responds. That's a worn out little small block, but she made it almost to 5,000 RPMs before it limits itself. I don't know if the valves float or what the hell happens, but whatever. Got a 2000 BMW 5 Series, 6-cylinder. Coil unplugged, EFI, and I'm getting some erratic crap right now. But then I look at the scope and I say, that's not that strange. However, if I speed this thing up, we're gonna see some crazy crap right now. These BMWs will fire multiple sparks at idle to clean up emissions and what have you. So you've actually got a main pulse width here, and you've got 2 remaining zip zaps on it, which is causing the math for the RPM calculation to be an absolute disaster. So I'm gonna rev it up a little bit, see if that happens throughout the entire rev range, or is it just an idle feature? So look at that, that thing cleans up as soon as you crack off idle. I always kind of knew this happens, but I never saw it live before, and I'm glad I did, so I learned something tonight. Awesome. All right, guys, that wraps up this episode. This was interesting, kind of went a little differently than I expected it to, but it went great all in all. So it's the MSD 8918 Universal Tach Pickup. Use it for your dyno, $5 opto isolator from SparkFun or whatever that website is. I ran it on old school, 67 Volkswagen, a 2000 BMW, a 2001 Chevy Duramax, and an 86 Chevy K5 Blazer. So I got 4 different ignition systems. One of those motors doesn't even have an ignition system, it's a diesel. And it worked to pick up the RPM on all 4 of them with no hardware changes. All you do is clip it onto the wire and go. Of course, you got to set your amount of cylinders and pulses per revolution, and that crap in the software, very easy. So, all in all, I'm really happy with this. I gotta clean up the wiring and make it look nice and all that garbage because it's kind of just in prototype mode right now. But I am extremely stoked with this. I've been looking for a solution that I can use for like all kinds of engines without changing stuff. You know, some motors got plug wires, some motors are coil on plug, some are diesels, some are these, you know, old school pieces of junk. So pretty much this will work on almost any combustion engine except for like a, you know, mechanical diesel. So pretty stoked on that. This worked out good. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Spank Ranch Garage.